Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I'm a little tired. My staff is tired. I got them up after a late night, but I just wanted, because I did not have the opportunity to give you all the opportunity to ask any questions last night, so I want to do that. But before I get started, I just want to touch on a couple of things, and then I'll take any questions that you may have, because we did not have the opportunity to do a press conference last night. I told the staff that it was their time last night. The staff and the supporters that were there last night, I was elected because of just about every single person that was in that room last night. What you saw last night in that room was a combination of hard work that started 6 months ago, and I was overwhelmed by the support that I got in this campaign, and I really wanted to spend the time to thank them last night. And I still have an entire day of phone calls to make to thank people. I want to thank Mayor Warren for her classy concession speech last night. I look forward to working with her over the next 6 months, and I also look forward to continuing talking to her as I transition into the mayor's office. Being a mayor, as I know, is a very difficult job, but it's something that you don't know until you get there. And I'm blessed to have known and have great relationships with all the current mayors that are currently in Rochester: Johnson, Richards, Duffy, and I hope that I will be able to have a strong relationship with Mayor Warren after she ends her term in December. I also wanted to thank again my wife Shawanda and my boys Cameron and Carter. Running for office is one of the most awesome tasks that you can do, particularly when you're running for something as high profile as the mayor's office. I'm always amazed by people who want to step out there and run for office. They think it's so easy, but then they run a poor campaign. And poor preparation leads to a piss poor production. And what you saw with our campaign was great preparation. You saw great preparation there. Patty's got a phone call she's got to take. So we were happy to be able to run a campaign that was executed well. John Brock is here. Many of you may not know the name of John Brock, but John Brock has been with me since my years as Students Association Treasurer at the University of Rochester. And he was the operations behind this campaign. He was basically essentially our day-to-day operations, and he led a great staff that you see around here. And I want to thank John for all of his work that he's done. A lot of the people on this campaign we pulled in that do not like politics. And that's why you saw a campaign that was run on positivity. We never got low. I watched some of the political gurus that you guys call on your show. There's this one guy from Nazareth that some of you guys love putting on. Very interesting guy. But you know, we didn't pay attention to any of the gurus that were there. We had a mission that we wanted to do. We wanted to be proud in this campaign, and if you've noticed, we ran a good campaign. Because when you get down in the mud, guess what? The mud splashes back at you, and I don't have any mud on me. Why? Because we kept the campaign positive. We wanted to run a campaign in the same way that we would govern this city: organized, disciplined, and focused. And that's what we did in this campaign, and I think you saw that as the results last night. And that was because a lot of our campaign was led by people who are not part of the political chattering class. And my administration will also have many people who are not part of the political chattering class. So it might be a little boring for you in the media that like that combat. But you won't get that in the Nevins administration. I just want you to know that. I also want to thank the numerous childhood friends that were deeply involved in this campaign. Folks that I went to school with from first grade on up. They raised money for me. My high school classmates, elementary school classmates, my family near and far were absolutely instrumental in this campaign. We are very, very excited about that. I do want to say that over the next 6 months, I don't want to be presumptuous. We are not sworn in yet. However, we will continue to work to make some and advocate for things that we think are extremely important over the next 6 months. One of the things is that I am very concerned about the COVID vaccination rates in 2 of our zip codes, particularly 14605, I'm sorry. Very concerned about the rates there. As you know, we have 2 of the lowest COVID vaccination rates in New York State. I believe that with the 4th of July coming, as well as the summer months, it is absolutely vital that we ensure that we have herd immunity in those zip codes, or otherwise we will slip back. This Delta variant is extremely serious, and I am deeply, deeply concerned about our low vaccination rates. I plan on hoping to work with the Bello administration as well as the state to advocate on doing every single tool in our power to make sure that those rates of unvaccinated individuals in those zip codes rise. We have to do something about that. COVID is alive and well. I was at a funeral for someone with COVID that was very close to me about a month and a half ago. So it has not gone away. And as we see the temperatures are rising, we need to make sure that we focus on that. I said to the superintendent this morning, I was also very saddened to hear that some of the Rochester City School District events are going to be moved inside because they are concerned about the violence that is happening on the streets. I know someone was shot last night. So that is something that cannot wait for a new administration. We will have to continue to work with the mayor and her team. And all of us in the community are going to have to come together to make sure that we immediately address this violence that is happening in our streets. I witnessed and was close to this violence almost firsthand on 2 different occasions while on the campaign trail talking to voters and walking up and down our streets. On Scioto Street and Genesee Street, I was at both of those locations within hours of murders taking place. So this is something that is extremely important to me. As you know, as a young black man growing up in the city of Rochester, I have seen violence firsthand. 17 years old, I had someone killed right outside of my house, literally at my doorstep. So this resonates with me. I am tired of seeing particularly young African-American men being killed early on, and we have to make sure that we have a comprehensive strategy with that, and we will be working on those plans now and doing what we can in the interim to make sure that we are successful in doing that. The other thing is that I spoke with Majority Leader Chuck Schumer this morning. Me and Chuck Schumer go way back to my time on the Rochester City School Board and my time as a member of the National School Boards Association, Council of Urban Boards of Education, and also the Great City Schools. So he would host us in D.C. And I spoke to him about the flexibility that is needed, and he pledged his support for the American Rescue dollars that will be coming to Rochester, over $200 million. I told him that for a lot of the things that we want to do in our agenda and our compact with the community that we rolled out, which I hope you folks in the media read, because that's what we led with during this campaign. We led with issues and facts. And as you know, we made a lot of promises during our campaign. Our drugs are, our youth opportunity agenda, which talks about pledging employment for any youth that wants it. All those things cost money, and I am hopeful, and Senator Schumer has made clear to me that he will work with the Treasury to make sure that we have the flexibility to use those funds for things that we believe will move Rochester forward. I believe that obviously we will need to have a robust community conversation about the ways in which that dollar should be used. I know the mayor had a teletown hall last week. I think that those conversations will need to continue. The first half of that money is coming this year. The second half is coming the following year. But we cannot waste that money. It cannot be thrown away. We need to make sure that we do some good things with that money. And I hope that we can leverage that money by working with the county and also working with the school district. It would be a shame on this community if we are not transparent on where that money is going, and if we are not showing that that money is going to be used for things that are going to be able to enhance our community, and we should report back on the community what that money is going to be used for. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. Obviously, again, I'm not presumptuous. I'm not sworn in as mayor yet, but I will tell you that in the coming weeks, I will be preparing a transition team. I also will be preparing go teams for every single city department that can look to see what is going on in each department to make sure that we are able to maximize the talent that we have in this community. I intend to bring into this administration, when we are elected, God willing, in November. We are on the ballot in November. We're on 2 lines, as you know, the best talent to bear, because those are the challenges that we have in this community, and it is important that for anyone that is interested or complaining about what's going on in the city, and if you think that you have something to contribute, I'm always reluctant to say this, don't call me yet, but reach out, because we need people that are that have been on the sidelines, that might not be interested in government, but have the skill set, the knowledge, and the desire to be able to make a big impact in our community, to say, you know what, I may be making a lot of money in the private sector, or I may be love what I'm doing in the nonprofit world, but it is time for me to come and serve my city. For me, this is service. I have to remind you guys in the media, because you sometimes don't report it, that I'm not a career politician. 20 years in the financial service industry is what I do. So this, for me as mayor, is service. It is meant to be service to the community. I always get scared of being labeled a career politician, and I hope that I'm never labeled as one. My career has been in financial services, and I've done service to enhance that, because to whom much is given, much is expected. And I want those same people to also think about coming to serve their government. I'm also very thankful for all the city employees and all their work that they have done One of our other priorities that we will have is to make sure that we have one of the most engaged workforces around. Because if we have an engaged city workforce that loves what they do, that will also only enhance our public. So that is also extremely important. So again, I want to thank the community for their confidence that they have shown in me. I want to thank the mayor once again for her concession speech, and we've been playing phone tag. I hope to connect with her sometime today or in the coming days. But I also want to thank all of the, how many volunteers did we end up with? 712. 712 volunteers that signed up from January to June for this campaign. 700 plus from January to June. And I also want to thank the political chattering class, the guys that you guys put on, these geniuses that you put on your shows to talk about the election and what their thoughts are. I just had to get that dig in there because it was so interesting to watch these guys that didn't know what they were talking about. But, okay, we'll take some questions.
Malik, why do you think you won?
Why do I think I won? I think because we had a message. I think if you have a message and you lead with that message, you will do well. Also, I think that I was very disciplined. So Berkeley, when I was in school, when I was a student in school, you know, you'd have kids sometimes acting up, throwing erasers, making all types of noise. But I was the kid that was always in the center of the room and still able to stay concentrated and finish the test, finish the essay that was due. So while all this nonsense was swirling around, while Brian was writing his piece about what I should be doing and all that stuff, we stayed focused. We stayed focused on our message. We stayed focused on our mission. And when you do that, I think that you are able to be successful. I also stayed true to my parents who aren't here. This is the first campaign that my father has not worked on. John did a great job in filling those shoes. I think my dad from heaven will be looking down and smiling at John for the way he helped run this campaign. We stayed extremely focused, and we knew that we had a message with our compact with the community. From the theme that we chose of building bridges, and people said, oh, what does that mean? I think Brian's article quoted it saying, oh, it seems flowery or something like that. But that message came from voters. All the things that we outlined, economic empowerment, that came from voters. The youth opportunity agenda, that came from young people that worked within the campaign. So I think that we stayed extremely focused. I think the other thing that was good was we ignored the nastiness that you see on social media. Social media can be extremely nasty. I'm known as someone who has never had a major social media presence. That was by design because I see the negativity that's in there, the bullying that happens. But we stayed so focused and away from that. When we saw nasty things that were posted, we led with positivity in the facts. And that's the same way we're going to lead this administration.
What about things outside your control? Crime, some of the situations surrounding Mayor Warren.
Yep. What about them? Were they factors
in your winning?
I don't know. I'm sure you'll ask some political analysts that. I think that I think they could have been factors, but I think the things that were greater factors were the things I just told you. I think that those were greater factors. Because you know what? If you didn't have a message and you were just running because you're running against the other person, the other man or woman, you don't win. You have to have a message. So it's easy for me to say, I'm not that person, vote for me. And that's what some people wanted me to do. But guess what? I didn't do that. So to answer your question, I think that that's why we won. Were there other externalities that happened in any race? Obviously, absolutely. Those things are always contributing factors. I'm a political science major. And I probably could be a better analyst than some of the folks that you guys have on TV. But I will say that I think that the message has to win. You have to give people a reason as to why you are running. Why are you out there? And that's what my team did, and John will tell you, we had an entire team that helped us develop the compact with the community, and they would yell at me. They would say, you just can't run and say, you're not the other person. What are you gonna do around jobs? And if you look, we released some detailed plans, and some of those things have price tags to them. And we'll be honest about delivering on those. And I think that that resonated with people. What I heard from people was, oh, we love that youth opportunity idea. Absolutely, jobs work. We like that idea of you appointing a gun czar. So those types of things we believe resonated with the voters. And of course, there's always externalities. You're going to have that in any campaign. Andrea.
Malik, was there ever a point during the campaign while all these political observers are suggesting that you're a long shot, that you were a specific instance where you felt good about your chances, really good, and you felt like this was turning your way?
I think when we felt good is that when we started to get the reactions to some of the policy proposals that we rolled out. I said, all right, this is resonating with people when I was out and about. Because the other thing that we did was we got beyond the social media and events like this where we would actually go out in the community. I mean, if you look at, and we don't even post all the places and people that we talk to, but we were talking to real people. And then you would hear these people and you would say, huh, what we're seeing on the ground is not connecting with what that guy that Channel 8 loves interviewing, or whoever, Channel 13 loves interviewing, the expert, I forgot his name. is that his name? What is it? Yeah, the guy from Nazareth. So, I mean, we saw that it just wasn't connecting. And we were saying, he must know something we don't know. Was he doing polls? Is he talking to people? But we were like, okay, people are feeling this. People are feeling this. And we call it the Mrs. Smith test, right? You got David Andrietta, but then you have Mrs. Smith, right? And that person is like on the ground, like doing that. And that's when I was like, okay, this person, what we're saying is connecting. And I think that is as well, particularly after we released our youth opportunity agenda. When you heard from young people, but then you heard from their grandma. And their grandma was saying, you know what, I worry about my son, my grandson. And you're talking about that. And that resonated. And that started to make me say, okay, I think we're going to be okay. Now also we do our own internal polling too, but that's another story.
You roll from council.
Go ahead.
So when the budget vote last week, you're going to inherit a budget that I believe you voted no on?
Well, you should know. You check?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? You inherit that, you vote no on that budget, now it's your budget, what
You work with what you have, right? And again, it's not a terrible budget. My challenge with the budget was the process, right? I chaired finance, and usually we talk about amendments prior to the meetings. We make sure that people are able to talk. And if I'm going to run on a trust and transparency issue, it's important that I exercise that, and that I influence, and that I work to make sure that we have conversations about things before you vote on something, so everyone can be heard. And I will make sure that I definitely do that as mayor. But you inherit a budget, yes, but there are budget amendments that you can do. And I'm sure that we will be able to work with what we will inherit for the first 6 months of 2022.
You talked about working with the mayor in the transition. You have this, obviously, this long lead time with things that can't wait. Police chief, the union contract, police reform. How do you see that working in your involvement in those decisions?
Well, I think you have to remember I'm also still a member of City Council, and I plan to continue to do those duties to the best of my ability and continue to work hard as a City Council member, as I do now. But I think that I will work to make sure that I am very involved and influence those decisions, because I am the one that is going to ultimately inherit them. So we will work to do what we can do. But the work will begin now, and again, I'm very careful not to be presumptuous because I'm not the mayor yet, but we will obviously start to address some of these big issues, as you said, Brian, that they can't wait, right? I mean, crime can't wait. But those are things that we'll have to work on as a community. I also plan to really work with our community partners. And when I say community partners, folks in the community to really try to see what we can do to address some of this crime that we're seeing. Calling on particularly African-American men to come out, step up, and help to really try to stop this carnage that is happening on our streets. We cannot continue down this path with the level of violence that we've seen, from stabbings to shootings to homicides. It's just not good. We're losing too many lives, too many lost opportunities, and it is really not representative of who we are as a city. And I think that if we don't get a handle on it, it's going to spiral even more out of control.
Any thoughts on a permanent selection for chief?
No thoughts yet. Obviously, I will consult lots of folks. I think that we need to make sure that we do it in a deliberate fashion. I don't think that we should be rushing it or knee-jerk, because I always tell people there's 3 hardest jobs in the community: superintendent, mayor, and police chief.
What are you looking for in your next police chief?
I want someone that can be able to connect with the community, but at the same time be able to have good, strong leadership skills, can communicate effectively, but more importantly have a public safety strategy. We talked about our public safety first. What do we call it, John? Our community first. Community first public safety. We want someone to be able to embrace our community first public safety, to be able to come in here and earn the respect of the men and women in uniform, but also the men and women that are in our community. And that's a tall order, to be able to have respect of both. So we're looking for that type of chief. I'm also looking for someone that is going to be accountable to the people of Rochester and not to themselves. So anyone that's going to come here, we need to make sure that they have a commitment to Rochester, but they also have a commitment to service. That is the litmus test.
City Council will look very different.
James Brown. It's James Brown, ladies and gentlemen. He lives. Yeah.
Yeah. City Council will look very good, very different next year.
Yeah, a little bit
And
different.
there'll
You
be,
have 2 new members.
And there'll be likely a harder push to defund or eliminate police, if you listen to their proposals. how do you expect to handle that?
Look, how I expect to handle it is to make sure that we lead with the community process. I think it's also important to make sure that you listen to all sectors of the community and listen to what people are saying. Now, one of the things I learned, because I've been around marketing a long time, is that sometimes people can say things and it's marketed in a way that might not tell the whole story. So as we talk about the investments that we need to make, I think that that's the language and nomenclature that I want people to start using. That you want to make investments in early childhood education, that you want to make investments in youth opportunity and jobs, that you want to make investments in mental health. Those are all things that people agree with. So when you use a tagline like defund or those types of things, that immediately sets people off. So let's talk about what we're going to invest in. I like to talk about what we're going to invest in, and I call them front-end investments. So my youth opportunity agenda is a front-end investment, Mr. Brown, because Mr. Brown, if you are 17 years old and I'm investing in you and I'm ensuring that you are going to be able to get a job, you are less likely to then go to Brian and buy an AK-47 that he may have bought in Conyers, Georgia for $200 and he sold it to you for $700. You see what I'm saying? So all of these things have to go together. And the other thing is that I am not into slogans, empty solutions, or one thing that's going to solve everything. So when you hear me talk about things, I talk about the interconnectedness of all of them. So you can't talk about public safety without talking about economic development and youth, drugs, alcohol. You can't separate the two. It's like love and marriage. You can't separate the two. You can be married, but if you don't love each other, you're not married. You gotta be able to put them together.
So are you gonna reframe, is policing then not gonna be called policing, but under an umbrella of public safety? Is that the term that will?
Well, I mean, we'll see, because public safety is a better term, I believe, right? Because what do you want public safety to look like? You're always gonna have, you have police officers. I use the term public safety. On our platform, we use the term public safety. But what we want to do is we want people to think critically, which is very hard to do for some people, right? We want them to understand that it's just not one thing, that you can't talk about police in isolation. You can't talk about economic development in isolation. Because if you talk about economic development in isolation, then you're missing the safety part, which goes in tandem with economic development, because if people don't feel safe, or if there's violence, they're not going to open up a business. While at the same time, you have to, if people don't feel respected by the police, they're not going to help them solve crimes. So all of these things are pieces of a puzzle. They're not separated and they're not in isolation. So if anybody says, we should just do one thing, they don't know what the heck they're talking about. It's not just one thing that's going to solve Rochester. So we talk about things more comprehensively. We want people to think about things in a way that will allow them to elevate their way of thinking, so that way we can solve these challenges that we have in Rochester, which are not easy. I mean, I'm arriving at this at a time that is absolutely unbelievable in our city. And there's a lot of work to do. And I want to be clear that I am not going to be able to do this alone. There is no me, it is we. And that goes for all of you in the media, who are going to have to make sure that you are researching what it is you're talking about and explaining why it's important, and writing longer stories and running longer stories, because they're just not that simple, right? It's just not. And the more we do that, I think the better our community will be. Because Lord knows we need hope in our community, we need opportunity in our community, and we need the opportunity to really be able to have people understand these issues for what they are, which are more complex than what we sometimes make them out to be. A couple more questions, yes, sir.
The contract with the Rochester Police Club has been up for about 2 years. It's been open for renegotiation. Do you have any thoughts about any of the conversations you would like to have?
Well, I'd like to have conversations to help try to settle a contract. I've worked with labor for years. One of my good friends is a labor negotiator. Not having a contract is never really a good thing. You want to work to try to have peace between labor and management. And what I mean by that is a contract. That's the purpose of a contract. So it may be difficult conversations, but you have to have some of the best. We have some of the best labor negotiators in New York State. We should be able to figure out how to settle a contract that meets the needs of our community. But again, it's not easy. But it takes work, it takes conversation. It takes not always coming out in front of the media and saying, hey, this is what's happening. It takes work. It takes people getting in a room, disagreeing, maybe even calling each other names, which I hope doesn't happen, but then coming to a conclusion that's going to benefit Rochester. But whatever we do, it has to benefit both sides. It can't be one-sided. It has to benefit everybody. Who else? Anyone else had their?
I'll throw one
Okay,
out.
yeah.
You've been in leadership roles for a long time, student body president,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Right.
President of the school board, but you said at the outset of this that you don't know how difficult the job of mayor is until
You're there.
the mayor.
Yep.
How have these other jobs prepared you for this, and particularly prepared you for a full-time job
Yeah, full-time.
in leadership? Because I'm presuming you're going to have to leave the financial
Right.
services job.
Right. Unless I want to have no hair.
Right.
No, great question. Great question, Dave. I think the best thing it's prepared me for is dealing with different type of people. So if you look at the campaign, we had support from all broad bases of people. And some of those same people supported us. They weren't fans of each other, but because of what I was talking about, I was still able to bring folks together. One of the things I do regularly, and it's not regularly reported on, is once a month. I convene, Courtney is responsible for coordinating it, 3 city school board members, 3 city council members, and 3 county legislators. And we just talk every month. We got a meeting coming up next month, guest is gonna come, and we try to say, hey, what can we do to try to find common ground? So I'm very good at trying to find common ground. And I always tell people, you know, one of the things I didn't run away from on this, when I ran for this was my school board record, because if you look at a lot of the things that people still talk about are things that I started when I was on the school board. Facilities modernization program, still going on, it's going into phase 4, it's had some challenges, Lord knows, but that's still going on. Pre-kindergarten, people still talk about that. That started under my watch. Exponentially learning schools, School 58, School 10, that's still happening. School health services. These are all things that I worked on when I was on the school board through collaborations with other people that are still long-lasting long after I'm gone. I mean, I haven't been close to pre-K in years. I haven't been close to school nurses or facilities modernization in years, but they're still happening because I was able to bring people together to work on that. So my skill is that skill set that I take from those other jobs is I'm able to deal with people who sometimes others might not want to deal with, but I think that's important as mayor, because you really have to be able to set the table, because some of the people with the expertise, you just need to get them in the room and try to get them to work together, and then step back, and then come in and say, did you guys figure this out yet? And if you didn't, why not? And then, if they don't, then I have to lay down the hammer, right? But you don't want to have to do that. You want to be able to try to get people to solve these challenges. So that's been my experience from these other jobs, and that goes all the way back to being the treasurer at the U of R when the debate team spent all their money. John, I don't know if you remember that. So, I mean, but you know, those things are invaluable for me. And I hope other young people can also get those skills as they take on jobs, take on leadership positions, because I'm standing here because of each one of those things were successive. And I tell anybody, if you can handle being the board president, in which you really have no power as board president, your job is really just like to run the meetings. If you ever read the board bylaws, if you can survive that, I think you can survive pretty much anything, even Dante's Inferno. You might even be able to survive that if you can survive being board president.
So that leadership style and the way you went into the community to find out the issues and how you want to continue to go into the community, how do you think that can translate into more people turning out to vote?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's hard. You know, that is, you know, I used to teach a political education class, and that's something that is one of my passions. I think we have to do more of that. Look, I never understood why folks don't vote in local elections. Tip O'Neill, I think it was. Who's smart here? Tip O'Neill that said all politics is local? Who said that? Tip O'Neill? Tip O'Neill? So Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. And I would have arguments with people during this election time saying, you need to understand how important this mayoral election is. City council and the mayor, they set your tax rates. The county sets your tax rates. You understand that they set your tax rates? Yes, you got the federal government and your tax rates, but the schools, that's all local issues. So I think we have to educate people about how important those are. But I mean, for time almost immoral, we know that it's midterm elections and presidential elections where you get that turnout. I mean, early voter turnout in, for the last presidential was, what was it, over 200,000 or something like that for early vote? I mean, so I think we have to continue to educate people to tell them why local elections matter and why they have consequences, and why it's important to make sure that they exercise their vote. But yes, I hope that I can continue to encourage people to try to understand why local politics is important. But you know, that's a problem across the country.
During the current administration, transparency has been a real issue. Getting a FOIL request return has been very difficult. As everyone in this room knows, getting a conversation with the mayor has been extremely difficult. So I want an idea of how accessible you plan to be as mayor and how you plan on fixing the issues of transparency.
Well, I think you guys would be tired of me. I mean, you saw I tried to show you during the campaign. I tried to make myself available. And you know, during the campaign, I agreed to every single form, much to my wife's chagrin. Every single form. I agree. Anybody that wanted to talk to me, I pretty much agreed to it. Obviously, that's harder when you're mayor. But that would be very important. I won't ban any media people, although sometimes I think about it, but I won't do it. All right, Brian, I won't ban you, I promise. But you know, I will make myself available, because guess what? At the end of the day, it is the taxpayers that pay your salary. You're not in the private sector. And the FOIA request system should be as easy as pushing a doggone button, unless it involves a lawsuit or something that's coming up that will put the city in financial jeopardy, unless it involves you know, some type of land sale or something that might be happening. You know, then you have to be transparent. I believe in the inoculation strategy. You put it out there. You put it out there. You put it out there, and you make it easy and accessible for people to get. Most of the stuff in government is not that exciting, right? But it becomes more exciting when it looks like that you are trying to conceal and never reveal it. So there are so many systems that could do that, and that could be a great way for us to talk about our data science and other things that we can do. Maybe we can come up with some things that will allow us to be able to have a more searchable, easy, accessible FOIA system for a lot of information. The media has a critical role to play in government. As many of you know, my friends at one of the stations knows that I interned in media in college and in high school. My goal was to be Ed Bradley and have an earring in my ear and be on 60 Minutes one day. So I have a very much an appreciation for the importance of journalism. It is critical. It is the only way sometimes that we are able to get stories out to the public. And if it had not been for some of the cameras capturing Bloody Selma or some of the other things, it would have been harder to tell that story. So the media are extremely important. They also can be wrong sometimes, and they need to be held accountable just like government needs to. And you can count on me, definitely. Some of you know, you've heard from me over the years sometimes, me calling you if I think that something's wrong. But you should be able to do the same thing to government. And I think that the FOIA system, to me, that shouldn't even be an issue. It needs to be easy, accessible, and open to the larger public. Any last questions
So
before we wrap
people
up?
don't know a lot about civics lessons, so you stay at council till you sort of have
Yeah. So what
to
happens
do
is,
a role at this point.
So what happens is that my term on city council actually ends December 31st at 11:59 p.m. and then I'm no longer a council member. And then January 1st, God willing, I'd be sworn in as mayor of the city of Rochester. So I still have city council duties. I still have all of that constituent work to do. I mean, the good thing is that for those that may not know, city council is the legislative branch. The mayor is the executive branch. And I have to remind people, the mayor is not part of city council, and city council is not part of the mayor. They are two separate and distinct bodies. So that's a great civics lessons for people to be able to understand. But in the meantime, there's so much work to be done in terms of connecting with folks and making sure that we get off the ground running. We really want to be prepared to hit the ground running on January 1st. And that means it starts now. Hopefully I can get a little bit of more rest today, just a little bit more rest. And then hopefully we can start moving. I've already started talking to people as early as this morning to start talking about how we can start thinking about where we want to be. The last thing, I'll leave you with this last quote. As many of you know, I worked in a hockey rink. My first job, worked at a hockey rink in Poole. And I asked this kid, he was played for the junior Rochester Amherst. I said, man, how do you score all those goals? And you know what he said? He said, I believe in the Wayne Gretzky School of Hockey. I said, what's the Wayne Gretzky School of Hockey? He said, Wayne Gretzky always went and always goes to, Wayne Gretzky was still playing then, where the puck is going to be, not where it is. So the question for us over these next couple of months is going to be, where are we going to be in 3 months? Where are we going to be in 6 months? Where are we going to be in a year? And more importantly, where do we want Rochester to be there? And how do we get all of the building blocks and things set up so we can start to be able to go there, like Gretzky did? And that is a challenge, easier said than done. But I still remember that. I was like 16 years old, and that guy, that little kid gave me that analogy, and it stuck with me for years. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it, and I'm sure you will be hearing from me a lot more in the coming weeks. I just ask for your patience, your prayers, and your support. Thank you so much.